It has been said that in Twilight Struggle, you need to know the cards well in order to play well. Well, we're going to take you through every card one by one, and we're going to help you become a master at Twilight Struggle. This is Legendary Tactics. Today we're going to look at the early war card 5-Year Plan. And this is a really interesting event. In many cases, people feel that it's actually a USSR event in disguise, and we're going to talk about why. So the event text of the 5-Year Plan card says, the USSR player must randomly discard one card. If the card is a US associated event, the event occurs immediately. If the card is a USSR associated event, or an event applicable to both players, then the card must be discarded without triggering the event. And this opens up a very intriguing option for the Russian player, and why it's viewed in such a positive light is that if the last card you have in hand happens to be a scoring card, this card, when this event triggers, allows you to discard the scoring card without having to score it. So it's a way of getting rid of an unfavorable scoring card easily from your hand. In fact, there are some players that think if you are the USSR player and you get this card in hand, you should hold it through the first turn, second turn, like as long as you possibly can because of this advantage. So the way that this works would be you'd play this card for the ops, and then when the event happens, you would discard your last card, which is the unfavorable scoring card you've been looking to avoid for your whole hand, and it is discarded to no effect. On the right, we have some very annoying US event cards. These are low ops cards. They can't be spaced very easily, and in many cases we're forced to play them and therefore suffer the event. However, if you look to the left, there is the 5-Year Plan card, and this can be used to mitigate these events in a very interesting way. For example, let's look at OAS Founded. Now, on its own, if you're forced to play this card, it gives the US 2 influence in Central America and or South America, and you are only given 1 ops with which to respond. So this can be a problematic event for the USSR player. However, with 5-Year Plan, you can actually get 3 ops to respond with. So the way this works is when you have a situation where you have 5-Year Plan and OAS Founded as the last 2 cards in your hand, you would play 5-Year Plan first, the event happens first, and with only 1 card in hand, OAS Founded becomes the obvious discard. The event is triggered, and the US places 2 influence in South America. Let's say they do this. Then, once that event has been completed, the USSR player has 3 ops with which to respond, and so they can potentially disrupt the actions of the American player and leaves them in a much better spot than it would have otherwise. 5-Year Plan can also be used to mitigate a very annoying US event called Sadat Expels Soviets. You're probably familiar with it. And the way that you can mitigate that with 5-Year Plan is that if you have these 2 cards in your hand, save them for the last. And so it'll be in the last action round, and you would play 5-Year Plan. The random discard would be, of course, Sadat, because that's the only card you have left in your hand. That triggers the American event. Now this would be very annoying, except instead of having 1 op to respond with, if you played the card by itself, you now have 3 ops to respond with, and so you can actually move right back in and retake Egypt. Another US card that can be mitigated in this way is the Truman Doctrine. And so you do this in a similar way. You'd save these 2 as your last 2 cards in hand in the last action round. You play 5-Year Plan, and that means, of course, that Truman Doctrine is your only possible discard, and so the US will take their event. However, once again, you have 3 ops to respond with, and so you can get right back in there if you're in an ops war for France or something like that. There's a risk to 5-year plan though. If you have an American event that happens to be a DEF CON suicide card for you, then essentially 5-year plan becomes unplayable. Because if you do play it, that will result in you losing the game as the American event happens and the American does a coup in a battleground or whatever to drop DEF CON to 1. Because the American event happened on your turn as a result of your play, as you are the phasing player, then the responsibility of ending the world falls to you. So you have to be careful that you don't end up with an unusable card if you possibly can. Now you can play it early in the round, and that will still carry some risk, but if you have multiple cards in hand, because it's a random event, there's a chance that the DEF CON suicide could happen, but the more cards you have in hand, you can run the risk of just having the American draw a different event card, and things are mitigated. So these are some of the main uses that the USSR can make lemonade from lemons and turn this US event into a great opportunity. The US player is mostly going to use this card for its ops value. Early war ops are very valuable to the US player. A 3-op card is worth its weight in gold, so to speak, so you're going to probably take this for the ops. However, there are certain situations when you might want to use it. For example, if you're pretty sure the USSR is holding a DEF CON suicide card, something like CIA created, and you want to put some pressure on, you might consider headlining this card and therefore cutting down their hand size so that they're forced to play it. Especially if the China card is in your possession, it can be a really powerful play. Also, if you just want to cut their hand size down, so that they're forced to play out their whole hand, including some of your events, usually in turn 2 you have a pretty good idea of what they have in their hand. It's not totally guaranteed because there will be a handful of cards still left in the deck, but you'll usually have a decent idea of what they might be holding, and so you can do something like that to cut their hand size and just make life very inconvenient for them, especially, once again, if the China card has been played by the USSR player and it is in your possession. They don't have any way of protecting their hand. Because you can force the USSR to cut their hand down, it may actually force the play of the China card, which, if you're looking ahead and you really want to take the China card away from them and have it in your possession going into the next round, then this is an opportunity to force their hand to give you that China card. Also, a timely play of the event of 5-year plan might allow you to neutralize a card like War Games, which can give you a chance to prolong the game, perhaps make it to final scoring where you can take your victory, or also neutralizing a scoring card that might be unfavorable to you. Now, it's a bit of a random thing. However, if you can draw something like that out, if you know either the USSR players holding it for later on or what have you, it can be a great event to draw those out and neutralize them so you don't have to deal with them otherwise. In the early war, if you have a chance to use this event to draw either decolonization or destalinization, which are two of the more powerful USSR events in the early war, if you can force the USSR to discard those to no effect, that can be an incredibly powerful and useful play. So sometimes having just a knowledge of the cards that are likely to be held in the USSR hand can be a great guide as to whether to use this card or not. The use of the event on this card becomes even more attractive if you happen to be under Red Scare or Purge. If the USSR has, say, headlined this card, then it's only essentially 2 ops that you're losing by using this event. And so the opportunity to wreck the Soviet plans, I think, will be well worth the exchange of 2 ops. It certainly slows the Soviets down in a turn when they're hoping to gain a lot of momentum from this headline event. Perhaps one way to look at this card for its event is as a headline, and generally that's probably the best time overall to use it. one of the risks that you can run is that if the other side has duck and cover and DEFCON's at 2 and you play this card for the event, that can be DEFCON suicide on your part. So certainly that is a card that you're going to want to keep an eye out for. Make sure it's in the discard pile or in your hand before you use this card, because it might cost you the game. Some have compared 5-Year Plan to another US event from the mid-war called Grain Sales to Soviets. And basically, I'll do a quick comparison here. 5-Year Plan is considered to be the worst event, just overall. Number one is because you're giving up 3 ops points when you take the event, as opposed to 2 for Grain Sales to Soviets. Also, just in terms of flexibility, the USSR player must randomly discard with the 5-Year Plan. Grain Sales to Soviets allows you to choose the card and either play it or return it. So you don't need to trigger the event, and there's you can take the ops if you like. It might do nothing, but you can at least have the flexibility of choice. So overall, Grain Sales to Soviets is a better event if you're looking to mess with the USSR's plans. Overall, what's the utility of the 5-Year Plan for the US player? Well, as I said earlier, you're going to use it mostly for the ops value. However, timed correctly and in certain circumstances, it can be a great disruptive force on the Soviet plans. So you don't want to count that out. This has been a brief discussion on how both sides can use the US event 5-Year Plan. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.